I'm not prepared to pay any of the politicians a fiver who keep on telling us what's going to happen. Because he said, like the surveys, they're so often wrong. I want a margin of error that I can live with. Anyway, there we are. Brexit, of course, is in the news, but it's being offset by the effects of the snow. All right, we in this country we're not used to the snow. Oh yeah, we can say we get it each winter, but we're not really used to it. We're not used to it the way that the Canadians and the Americans are, and for that matter, continental Europe. We are an island. We're affected by the sea. We're relatively warm in certainly weather terms, and we don't get a lot of havoc normally. So it always takes us by surprise, and it has taken us by surprise. Well, no, it hasn't really. We kept on saying it was coming, and then it didn't come, and so then eventually, of course, it's like crying wolf. Oh, it's going to snow tonight. Oh, it's going to snow tonight. Oh, it's going to snow tonight, and it doesn't. And then, of course, where we are is caught unawares, because it does happen. Anyway, this is by Ethan Melchthal, and it's called The Coming Storm. Well, there you are, the coming storm, and if you're in Eastbourne particularly, watch out, because the forecasts are that you're going to have it pretty bad. Lewis, likely with its funny little echo system, may not be hit that hard, but a lot of Sussex is going to come under snow, and watch out for the trains and the planes and the roads, because transport is going to be very difficult. I'm in London. I've got work to do this morning. I had plans to have a nice leisurely lunch before coming home, but I'm certainly going to check the circumstances, because it's easy to pretend that it's not going to be chaos on the railways, and if I get stuck in London again for another night, I think I might lose a friend, and certainly it's not going to be exactly what I'd planned for the weekend. So watch out for the weather today. Peek out through the window and see what's happening in your area. Because the funny thing is, of course, it's always very irritating when you hear somebody like me saying, it's snowing and the country's under 10 inches of snow or whatever, and then you look out of the window and nothing's happening in your area. There it is, the lawn is still green. But believe me, for most of the southeast at the moment, it's either there or is threatened. And if the snow has reached London, I'm sure that it's going to sweep right across the southeast. My friend said, in this part of London we don't normally get the snow, and it is a bit wet snow. It's not lying on the ground at the moment, but it's coming down full blast, and who knows how it's going to play out in the rest of the day. So do be careful indeed. Now, the question of knives, and people being killed and youngsters always seemingly in danger, and the rest of us in danger too, because it's an increasing trend across the country. In fact, the statistics are quite alarming, although one has to be careful about statistics. But it's got down now to the name calling. The police saying they want to do one thing, and the politicians calling for another, and then the slanging match goes on. You said, I said, we said, you didn't give me enough money, I wouldn't use the money that way anyway. But the fact is that there's an epidemic seemingly across the country when it comes to knife crime. And the Met Police apparently have given instructions that they to be a bit heavier, but really their idea is to advise youngsters on the bad things that can happen from carrying a knife and letting them go. And then, of course, on the other side, there is somebody saying, don't be so damn silly. The law says they can be thrown away for 4 years, and magistrates and courts are not imposing that, even when anybody is charged. So it's the old debate. The big problem is, of course, is with these sort of debates is in between time, people will die. There will be knife fights. The kids, because it's a knife culture, say we would feel naked without a knife. We wouldn't last 5 minutes on the streets if we didn't carry a knife. It's all in self-defense. But there are those that have been stabbed to death, and that's an almost daily occurrence now, who had knives and it didn't save them one little bit. So it's the old argument in the United States is, I carry a gun for self-defense. But because everybody carries a gun, there are more deaths, more murders and mass slayings as well in the United States than we sometimes even hear about. And if I'm not going to get involved in whether a gun law is right or proper, because the fact of the matter is the Americans must determine their own destiny. But I think the idea that you carry a knife for defense and therefore you're going to stay safe is a bit of a false premise. And if that's your argument, forget it. Put your knives away and get off the streets. If necessary, get off the streets. Stay at home for a few nights instead of... I must say that there are a number of kids. I was on the Overground, well, I say Overground, Underground, Metropolitan line from Hammersmith into Paddington last night. And there are some aggressive youngsters around. Not that they were threatening to passengers or anything, but their very cockiness is a bit disturbing when you know that some of them may have a blade tucked on their body, and the way things are going at the moment is they don't mind using it. And I was just looking back over the news from, or the websites from all our tiny towns, and our tiny towns are from Battle to Brighton, and there are a number of incidents that have happened where people have either been caught up in some sort of a fist fight, or have been battered, or been attacked, and that's an unusual thing for our part of the world. East Sussex, generally speaking, has been a fairly nice area, fairly calm area. The police really haven't had that many sort of crimes to deal with, but that's on the increase even with us. And if that's the effect that a national theme and the national sentiment about knives is having, or not just knives, but attacking. And when I first came to Lewis in 1990, 28 years ago, I suppose now. Yeah, 29. You could walk safely through the town at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you'd not give one thought. I would now. I'd be very careful, because there have been reports of youngsters rampaging through the town. There have been reports of people being beaten up, and that sort of report can only indicate that we've got some sort of a problem, and perhaps the peelers should actually go looking for those sort of things now. I said the peelers because I was privileged to go around Westminster Abbey last week with a very specially guided tour. And, of course, Sir Robert Peel's grave and statue is in the Abbey, and very prominent it is, and our host pointed him out over and above others, because basically he really started the police force. It's become a very sophisticated operation today, but it really sometimes gets into such political correctness that it becomes less effective than it should. And yesterday I had a real rant about managers, and I haven't changed my opinion today. The managers of the railways, the managers of hospitals, the managers of Parliament, the managers of the district councils, the managers of a whole host of other things. It seems to be a generation of managers who can't manage. And it is a very specific. People say, oh, I'd love to be a manager. One of the things about journalists is that most journalists never wanted to become an editor, because editors meant that they got to do administrative work, and they didn't want to do that. They prefer to be journalists. And that's why some of the very best journalists are journalists, and some of the very poor ones are editors. Not that I'm saying that they're bad editors. I had some very good ones along the way. I had a couple of bad ones too, but I had some very good editors along the way who helped guide me and turn me into, I think, not a bad journalist. Even though I suppose I should have hung up my spurs, I'm approaching 80 now, that I've kept going, because it is such a joyful industry. It's a joyful vocation. But by the same token, there were some very wise men along the way, and I hope that this generation has a host of wise editors who pass on their experience to youngsters and to maintain some sort of standards, because there's every indication that the standards are dropping. Going to name names? Oh, certainly not. There's a B in it. We wouldn't want to say anything nasty, would we? Right, it's 28 minutes, and I suppose really there's not much time left to play another track. So I think I'll just talk for half a second or so, and then I shall go to those lovely, lovely people at Bensound. Those of you who have heard me know that I use a lot of music from a group or a company called Bensound, and they both write their own music. They collate authors that are not known, or musicians that are not known, songwriters, and they have a wonderful collection which they charge for if you're a commercial operation. But like us, if you're not making a bob, they allow you to use free. And they say, please give us a little mention so that people know about us. So Bensound, absolutely terrific. And some of the great music, and I haven't played any this morning in the body of the program, but we do always play out to a Bensound's piece of music. It's called Endless Motion. So what I'll do is I'll play Endless Motion. I shall then go and test the snow waters outside and see what sort of day it's going to be here in London. But watch out, it's going to be a pretty rough day wherever you are. Have a good one if you can. Till tomorrow, Keith Hayes. Oh no, tomorrow's the weekend. On Monday we start with Mirador Television again on Monday, so tune in, same time, to any social media, and you should catch us. Till then, toodle pip.